Hi everyone, we are ready to get going. So back for our second seminar of the day, Vodka's Enduring Appeal, Sustaining Global Dominance and Revitalising Its Cool Factor. So let me introduce you to our speakers here this morning. We are joined by Matthew Brennan, Commercial Manager of Tito's Handmade Vodka, Mohit Singh, the founder of Desi Daru Vodka, and next to me, Zak Oganian, CEO of Origen X, which owns Mikolasch Vodka. And I'm honoured to be moderating this panel today. I'm Melita Kiley, Editor-in-Chief of the Spirits Business Magazine, and we're so happy to be here at the Spirits Business Hub and to have so many people come and join us for what I'm sure is going to be a really insightful conversation about vodka. We have a lot of ground to cover between us. And one thing I think with vodka is that it can sometimes be overlooked in the industry compared to other categories, newer, more up and coming. Do you think that vodka is underestimated in the industry?
Yeah, I think to some extent. I think if you compare it with things like whiskey, which has a kind of cult following, or like tequila, which has a kind of artisanal storytelling, vodka is a bit overlooked. And I think that the fact that due to its neutral flavor, people think that it doesn't have any flavor. But, in my opinion, I think if you use kind of craft ingredients, and good craftsmanship, you can really create something of an experience as a drink.
And I would say also, it can be a bit overlooked in media and, popular trends and things like that at times. However, I think most of us in the hospitality industry know that vodka is what keeps the lights on in a lot of bars and restaurants and retailers across the globe. So I think everyone understands that in the industry. It just might not be what everyone is talking about at that moment. But I think everybody's pretty aware of just how important it is to the overall spirits category.
Yeah.
So I think vodka is probably, to me at least, vodka is the most developed category. The category that you ask anyone in any country, they understand it. So it's perhaps the most kind of simple and clear category for the industry because it's been around for so long. But I think what is certainly underestimated is not so much the category, but the opportunity for the industry, for the vodka industry. And this is, hence, I think we're going to go in that direction later on in the discussion in terms of the opportunities that the industry is missing, because there's a lot of underestimated big gaps in terms of the way vodka is presented, because vodka is so developed that everybody thinks they understand it, but there's so much behind it that can be developed still. So I think this is the way we look at it.
I agree. I think it is such a big category, but there are definitely nuances, different styles of flavors to be found in there as well. And in the US, for example, it remains the biggest spirit category by volume and by value. The latest data from the Distilled Spirits Council of the US showed us that. Why do you think it is so consistently one of the biggest selling spirits in the world?
Well, first and foremost, it's so versatile. You can make just about any cocktail with vodka. You can substitute any other spirit for vodka in most cases. It just is such a wide array of flavors. There's a whole flavor portfolio, but of course, neutral vodka, you can add any flavor to it and create a great, tasty new cocktail. So I just think it's so versatile.
And I think the other thing is, going back to my original point, is that I think people think they understand it. So any bartender working with vodka, they feel like they know what to do with it. Versus, let's say, if you bring in mezcal or another agave spirit, or even tequila, which has advanced quite a lot lately. So it's a matter of, I think, confidence of how to work with it, because it's been around for so long. And this is part of the problem in the category, I think, because now we have to teach the trade how to use it in new ways to be able to propel it further.
And I'd say the same thing as Matt. It's just very approachable and, it's great, not much more to add there.
Yeah. And coming back to you, Matt, for Tito's specifically, and one thing that I always find amazing about Tito's as a brand is that you have grown to such success with one key product. What's the secret to Tito's success?
Well, I can't tell you. It's a secret.
I was going to say, that's the only reason we're here.
But I think basically the answer's in the question. We do one thing We do it really, really well. And, Tito Beverage, our founder, I think when we were starting out, we were so small for so long. We never had any outside investors put into the company. So it was really just, we had to go out and sell it bottle by bottle. So that was accounted for our entire cash flow. So in terms of capacity, early on, we didn't have the ability to expand to flavors and other things. And so we just kept our focus on making the best vodka we possibly could. And I think that began to really pay off over time, to where when opportunities would come up to expand into flavors, Tito would just pass on that and just say, we're going to keep doing this one thing and do it the best we possibly can and make, what we think is the world's best vodka. And, we just kept hitting the same nail with the same hammer over and over and over again. And we just never chased, we never followed particular trends that ebbed and flowed. And so while other brands were off chasing a new innovation, we were just sticking to the core category, which if you look at vodka, neutral, unflavored vodka is still the bulk of the category. So for us, it was most important to continue to capture that part of the market. And I think just that steady focus over now 28 years in April has put us in the position we're in.
Wow. And what do you think are kind of the key qualities of Tito's handmade vodka that mean it resonates so well with consumers and you've been able to kind of retain that brand loyalty and grow it?
Well, I think at its core, it's a really high quality product that's not overpriced. Tito's got all sorts of great expressions that kind of speak to that. We're a prime rib vodka, but at a pot roast price. We're a brand for vodka drinkers, not bottle collectors. There's all sorts of quips like that that really capture the identity of the brand, and that it's a really high quality product that's not overpriced. You're paying for the juice that's inside the bottle, not the fancy packaging or the celebrity endorsement. We keep it very basic, very simple, and put all of our efforts into making the world's best juice. We do a lot with charity that really helps ingratiate the brand to the communities that we're in. And we don't overcomplicate things. I think it's a fun brand. It's not an exclusive brand. It's an inclusive brand. And so I think that really connects with a lot of people. I mean, that is the majority of people. Most people are on the other side of the velvet ropes, not in the inside in the VIP lounge.
Yeah.
So for us, it's really speaking to the masses and people who want quality but don't want to overpay for it. So I think those attributes are some of the things about the brand that's made it really resonate with people all over the globe.
Yeah. And I think particularly given the current climate where everyone is feeling, living costs rise so much, it's important that to have brands that are still able to offer the quality but at an affordable price, as you said, to make it inclusive and accessible.
Yeah, I think accessible for us is a really good word for the price point we're at. And, it's a brand for everybody. It's basically 18 and up. When people ask us what our demographic is, it said 18 and up.
Yeah. And Mohit,
21 and up in the US.
we saw a huge flavor boom and bust about a decade or so ago. And it's been great to see vodka kind of turn it around and there are brands bringing some really delicious, authentic flavors. Yours is a great example with your mango flavored vodka. What do you think customers are looking for these days from flavored vodka? Because there is a big market for it out there. And how does your brand fit the mold?
Yeah, I think that kind of boom and bust is kind of gone. I think what happened before was it was more of a novelty as opposed to quality. So I think kind of previously a lot of the flavored vodkas were kind of unnatural, artificial, whatever. And so I think like kind of the consumers now, they want two things. They want authenticity and they want quality. So I guess that's where kind of our mango vodka really fits in. It's authentic in the sense that it's British-born Indians starting it. It's mangoes from India, English winter wheat. The liquid itself has a story. Even the bottle has a story. For instance, like the 4 wedges on each side, if you hold it downwards, it reflects the kind of image of temples of India. But yeah, I think I think that's kind of in terms of going forward. I think hopefully there's more of a push for kind of really good quality flavored vodkas, and we think that kind of our mango vodka is really primed to kind of lead that. And it's of course in terms of spirits business, we also won 5 master medals. So yeah, it's done pretty well in terms of competitions as well.
Yeah, I think that's really testament to the quality of the vodkas that you have. And in terms of the demand that you're seeing for flavored vodka in particular, what's that been like as you've been growing your brands?
Yeah, so we've had a big, so we've been pushing more on the on-trade than the off-trade. So we're not been doing many celebrity endorsements or anything like this. So really kind of our endorsements are bartenders. And what we found is when we first started, we used to go to bars and like, for instance, I went to the Connaught bar or Coburg bar, and they're like, we only do vanilla or citron. Otherwise, we don't want to know you. What's great now, if we fast forward to 2025, our mango vodka now is positioned at a lot of the top bars, whether it's Mayfair bar, Churchill bar, Opium bar, and it's not just there on the back bar. It's on a cocktail, and not only it's the main ingredient in a cocktail. So it looks like people are embracing the fact that flavored vodka can be good, and we're hoping that we continue to go off that trend.
Yeah. And Zach, I'm going to come to you next. And provenance, heritage, place of origin, these are all qualities that we hear spoken a lot in the industry about what people are looking for from vodka brands. How important are qualities like these, in your opinion, when it comes to vodka? And what demand have you seen for products that deliver on those demands?
So I think what's important is maybe I put a little bit in a perspective at what we do as Origen X, because to us those qualities are not just important in vodka. To us those qualities and properties are important across board. Because what we do, I'm sure most people have not heard of Origen X here yet, but Origen X is basically a growing international group that is focusing only on historic, heritage-driven premium spirits brands. So this is all we do. So and to us, heritage, story, authenticity, traceability is number one pillar in everything we do. So when we looked at the vodka category, having done a few others, it's provenance, full transparency and traceability of the product to us was the number one thing. This is like a default setting. This is not a USP. There was a default setting. So what we wanted to see is a brand that is already historic, brought to international markets, that you can pick up a bottle and you can see. So the vodka that we make is single farms, different types of grains. We wanted to see the name of the farmer, the seasonality of crops, the types of and species of grains on every single bottle. So but at the same time be able to make it to mass produce it. So to us is really like the default setting in everything we do, because where we are going with our vision is a 25-30 year strategy to create one of the most valuable portfolio of historic spirits brands. So we're kind of looking at it as an existing trend. So we're talking about it earlier today. There's one trend, I'm sure there are others, but there's certainly one that has never changed in the spirits industry ever. There have been ups and downs, different varieties and so on, but across board in all the spirit industries, certainly in vodka, one trend is historic, heritage-driven, authentic products never went out of fashion, not in the 50s, not in the 70s. Maybe the marketing focus shifted in the category, but it's never gone out of fashion. So we expect that in 30 years, this is going to be still, if not the most valuable category, but certainly still in fashion. So we're going step by step just in that direction. So it's not so much in terms of consumer demand, like it's a new thing. It's one consumer trend that has never changed. So we just want to target just to that one thing.
And I think it's interesting to hear across all three kind of, I think you've all mentioned at some point how you connect that message and deliver that message and the qualities that your brands hold. What advice do you have for brands trying to relay that message to the consumer or to the on-trade? How can you best showcase the qualities of your products for anybody?
I think it's one thing we're doing more now is education. So just last week, we took like 25 to 30 bartenders to the distillery to learn about it. And what we're finding is kind of advocacy, like people learning kind of as much as possible. They go back to their bar and they're explaining it to all their customers. So for the on-trade, we're making a big push on training and just kind of trying to educate people as much as possible.
And I think if you have a real authentic story as well, it's really important to tell that story as often as you can on every platform that you can, because oftentimes you don't know where you are in the evolution of your brand, of your story. I mean, I've been with Tito's now for 21 years this year. So I started in '04. It was a very, very tiny brand. And as time went on, you know, the authenticity of the story continues to develop, because it wasn't some made up version of some by ancient granddad's recipe or something like that. It was a constantly evolving story, and it still is to this day. And so I think telling that story about, where the brand came from, what you do for the community, all these kind of things help really connect the brand to an audience.
I think the short answer is really tough. It's really difficult, because on the one hand, you want to tell the story. On the other hand, there's so much noise in the market, including noise and you're exactly right, of made up recipe stories. And the grandchild found a recipe of the great grandfather under his bed, and so here is the incredible product that we do now. So it's very difficult. I think the kind of the win-win, because nobody will answer that question precisely, because there's no recipe. If there were, then everybody would go for it. So I think it's a trial and error, experience and education by default. That's like the minimum that each brand would have to do. But I think above all has to be as honest as possible. Otherwise, it's just a matter of time hitting the wall of the cancel culture. And it has to be as open as possible, because there are some limitations for some producers, of course, and then just keep doing the same thing over and over again. The one thing I noticed in the industry is that there is so many cool concepts coming out, or cool ways to communicate, and they kind of blast it out and then die out. But I think what works precisely, so if there were a formula, there's one element to that formula, is consistency for as long as you can, and then it just works. This always works. Consistency for as long as you can, and it always works. It's a matter of time. You have to be patient. This is why 3 to 4 to 5 year projects are a bit of a risk, because are you going to fall off the cliff or not? And this is why we kind of chose that path of a super long term, consistently same thing. Maybe it's not the most impactful way to communicate, but it's the most consistent and goes for as long as you can run it. So I think that's probably the only thing that I can share that really works. Everything else is just trial and error.
Yeah. And I think that really relates back to what Matt was saying at the beginning of that with Tito's as well, that it was committing to the one product, doing it very well, and sticking, being focused on that. And the consistency that you said, I think really runs across both brands.
Who'd have thought that the most revolutionary thing we could do as a brand was not change?
And actually, with so many temptations in the US market for flavorings and stuff like this is kudos to you for sure.
Yeah. And in terms of excitement, we mentioned at the beginning, vodka sometimes isn't put out there as exciting as, say, tequila or mezcal, which is growing very quickly, but it's from a much smaller base, or even American whiskey or other spirits. How do you think we can inject more excitement into the vodka category?
Well, I think the cool thing when you're looking at vodka as a category right now, it's massive. But one category within the category that's really accelerating is premiumization. So brands with identifiable qualities, that really make their own place in the vodka category. So I think if you're going into vodka and, you have kind of a commodity strategy, you're going to lose. So I think that's why brand is so important, to build a brand as authentically as you can and really stick to it, and not, be so tempted to zigzag and go off the course. I think if there's one thing I've learned at Tito's is to stay focused and just kind of ignore all the noise that you can, and really do what you do and do it the best way you can.
Yeah.
I think, for us, we're positioned a bit different. I think our mango vodka itself has been very exciting. Like last year, I think Melita was a judge. We did a cocktail competition in London. And to be honest, I never really see cocktail competitions where they have to use a flavored vodka as a base. And you see that created a buzz. We had people like the Ritz Hotel and many of the top places. So I think what we've done is we've kind of created a buzz around flavored vodka, and we've done it properly. And we're engaging bartenders, and it's not too hard. We get them to try, and they said, okay, we'll take it. So, but more than that, I think the activation, like if you're telling somebody to make a mango vodka based cocktail, all of a sudden this is very different to like how they've done it before. So it's like, okay, this is interesting. So I think the winner of the cocktail competition, the brief was like to use one British ingredient, one Indian ingredient. I think he used mustard, Vitor. He used mustard and paprika, but it tasted wonderful, and he won the competition. So I think, for us, like I think the whole flavored space and kind of being an innovator in the flavored space is really, we've seen a lot of interest in there, and we're hoping that going forward, we can continue to innovate and pioneer in that.
Yeah, it was really cool to see how creative bartenders were during the competition and the different ingredients they were pulling off. And you mentioned mustard. That sounds like it should not work in a cocktail, but it was so creative and so well done. And just before we started the talk, you were mentioning how another bartender who took part in the competition just loved the product so much that they've now put it on their menu, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was such an organic thing. Like this was the Mayfair bar, the one of the entrants. They weren't in the top 3. But, he loved it so much. He put us in the cocktail menu, and now they have, this last 3 days, there's an Indian festival called Holi. And now they're doing a big Holi activation with Desi Daru Mango. And it's just been such a nice kind of organic thing. And yeah.
Do you think collectively as a category that vodka is doing enough to stay competitive against other categories that are growing very quickly, such as RTDs?
I think vodka category is never doing enough. Because I think, again, so there's a little bit of a like a collective trap in vodka, because on the one hand, it's the most developed category, I would argue, one of for sure in the top 3 probably. So a lot of trade or brand builders or producers think that everything's been done there. The only thing that hasn't been done is maybe to tell a new story or do a new collaboration, something like this. So it's never enough. There's always work that can be done, and then from this point onwards, it starts with, I guess, a model, because there's so many different models. There's a model for a super successful brand in a single domestic market, and you would approach it in one way, and then there's a model for a super successful global brand, as a model for a super successful global mainstream brand versus a global premium brand. So there's so much stuff that can be done to kind of go up against different categories. And so I think this is where it becomes a little bit more boring and professional, because like if you compete against tequila and you want to compete globally, to us, and it might sound a little bit strange, but to us it actually starts from price categories, because it's easier for us to compete against other I'm talking about flavored narratives and so on aside, just kind of vodka base as people see it. It's easier for us to compete against tequila globally with a certain price point, and it's the line is very fine, and it's much harder to do it at a certain other price point, where of course people that are drawn to tequila, they're looking for a multi-layered character and so on and so forth. But one thing that is certainly in common that vodka category can double down on, is to go up against other categories that are doing so well, is again single out that provenance of the certain brand, because this is what tequila does so well. All the way down to noms and so on, so you can trace it. So I think to us it's probably that.
Yeah, I think similar to what Zach said. I think kind of authenticity and kind of like quality, is really important. But I also think that, it's a kind of different, like if there's a ready to drink, it's a different market. Somebody's going to go have a picnic, they're going to take a ready to drink. Somebody's going to have a whiskey, they're going to have it after dinner. But if somebody wants a martini, then they're going to have a vodka. So I guess it's like, our challenge is to make sure that we're up there, and when the people are choosing the vodka, yeah.
It's funny, in the US for a long time, you hear people who would say something like, well, I'm a whiskey drinker, but when I drink vodka, it's Tito's. Or I'm a beer drinker, but when I drink vodka, it's Tito's. So I think being able to erode some of those consumers, at least part of the time, from their tried and true category is really important. And I think you just do that by getting out and doing the little small things in bars and restaurants and retailers with tasting. And, one of the things that I always do when I'm in with the trade and talking to hospitality people is try as best I can to dispel that old adage that vodka should be tasteless, odorless, neutral, whatever, because it's not. If you taste Tito's up against other brands or any vodka against any other brands, you don't have to have a sommelier level of palate to distinguish between brands that are made from different core ingredients or that have, a different kind of heat to them. Like, a novice can do that. So I think dispelling that rumor is helpful in trying to create some education around specific brands and how they taste. And then baseline too, better spirits make better drinks. So just dumping any old vodka in a Cosmopolitan might not be able to taste it that night, but you're able to feel it the next day. So I think that speaks to the quality of spirits that you're consuming. And I think that ultimately is really, really important. And that part sometimes gets overlooked within vodka.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting what you were saying before about people say, I'm a whiskey drinker, but when I drink vodka, I drink Tito's. And I think it's important to remember occasions as well, because again, a lot of research is showing us that consumers are not category loyal or brand loyal as much as they were maybe 20, 30 years ago. And actually it's about what occasion am I at? What is the setting? Who am I with? What am I in the mood for? And I think it's important for brands these days to kind of target their approach and communications to kind of meet that demand from consumers as well. Bringing it back again to kind of the size of the vodka category, and the volumes are massive, the sales are massive, but it kind of ticks along in that stagnant level of growth. If it continues at that level, do you think we should be worried?
I don't think we should be worried at all. So look, it's like I don't know, you take a car industry, right? It's huge, ginormous. Are there incredible opportunities in it? You ask one person, they say, no, absolutely dead, that's it. This is, whilst others completely revolutionize the market. So same thing, there are always incredible opportunities, just a matter of looking at them. The problem that I see with settled categories, which vodka is that everybody assumes it's settled, there are no, gaps. But what happens when there's a stormy category, or different, like we operate across 40 different markets, and so many things change all the time. And when the storm starts, then everybody sees different opportunities. So I think that's the problem with vodka. So when we got into vodka, to us was very important. Of course, to us, it's first and foremost it's got to be historic, heritage-driven brand. So we were limited as to the number of origin that we could look at. So when we focused on Ukraine. And it is now we're finding out globally the most, as far as we are concerned, the most undeveloped vodka category in the world. And there are reasons for it, because there was a government monopoly for many, many years until 2019, 2020. And so the whole industry was very complacent. There's no innovation and so on. So here's one example of a perfect opportunity in a settled category that supposedly is not growing so much, to be able to propel and do something completely different while still honest and authentic.
Your question is probably applied to the entire adult beverage industry right now, with categories sort of being displaced and rearranged and new entrants and things like that. And there's a lot of attitude, this kind of Chicken Little type attitude around not only vodka, but every spirit. But if I may, I just want to read one thing that I found very illuminating. This is from the New York Times, and it's going to sound very familiar with most media these days when talking about spirits in general. This says, quoting, "America is sobering up, and that is a sobering experience for the alcoholic beverage industry." It's still talking about the U.S. here. "In a country that's become more alert to health and fitness and more mindful of moderation, social habits, people are drinking less than they have in years. As a result, the entire liquor industry, from distilleries to distributors to retailers and bars, is changing the way it does business. Per capita, distilled spirits fell last year." It's not new. It's not a new story, right? This is from the New York Times, September 17th, 1984. So it's a 40-year-old discussion that we're still having. And if you look at the overall trend for decades, it continues up. So I think when we talk about declining trend and rearranging of categories and stuff, we're looking at a fairly small segment of time. Over the long haul, the business is still projected to go up.
Yeah.
So I think just batten down the hatches a little bit, ride it out. People are still going to do what they do. And, what are we on now? Gen Z? Is that who we're on? We're way past that now? All right. Well,
Yesterday.
that was yesterday? All right. Well, we'll figure it out. But to answer your question, again, we just keep doing what we're doing what we're doing. We can't control everything. We can just make really good products and count on the fact that people will still enjoy beverage alcohol forever.
Yeah, great advice. And I think, so I'm really glad you pulled that out, because I think when you do look to past events, even more recently, like the 2008, 2009 financial crash, the spirits industry has proven itself to be very resilient overall. And even when that consumer confidence dips, when disposable income dips, when it recovers and the economy is stronger and that consumer confidence grows again, the data always shows that spirits does rebound.
I mean, all your friends who aren't in the liquor industry will tell you, you guys have it the best. Like good times, bad times, everybody's drinking. Well, it doesn't matter, you know. But there's some truth to that. But of course, it changes, it shifts, patterns change a little bit. But overall, you know, people still consume.
Yeah.
People still enjoy a cocktail, you know, after a hard day of work. People still enjoy a cocktail with dinner. You know, I'm not worried about that changing.
Yeah. And in terms of markets, what markets are you particularly excited about when it comes to vodka at the moment?
So at the moment, you know, we've just been very UK focused. So for me, it was one of those ones where I didn't want to, you know, we're still a very young company, but, you know, we didn't want to overexpand. Like we wanted to make sure that we focus on our home turf. But I think going forward this year, you know, one key thing is going to be India, interestingly. So kind of South Asia, Middle East. So we've signed a deal for distribution there. So that's going to be kind of like our priority for later in the year. So yeah, I think kind of South Asia, Middle East is going to be quite interesting for us. Although, it's only recently where we started getting some staff. It was just me and my wife before. So now we have a team of 4. So I have a bit more breathing room. So now I'm looking around Europe. And so, yeah, I think kind of South Asia, Middle East, and a bit of Europe for us. But again, we're very young, so we're not in that many markets. So.
Tito's is in about 150 markets now. So we're excited about a lot of them. And this is probably recency bias because I was just there, but I was in Dubai, and the way that particular market is developing is really, really exciting. Not only in Dubai, but like the Northern Emirates, Ras Al Khaimah, where the new wind is going in, and just regulations are easing up a little bit to allow for new licenses. Brands are really investing in the marketplace. People are moving there. It's just a really, really exciting market, and I think that Wynn Casino that's going in up in Ras Al Khaimah is going to create like a whole new district up in that area. So that's really exciting. I was just there a few weeks ago, and it is a massive, massive development. It's going to be really cool to see it grow.
That's great to hear. And I know global travel retail has also been very important for Tito's as a brand. Do you think that is still a strong channel for you?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, for one, obviously our biggest base of business is in the U.S., and the U.S. traveler is, prolific. I can't remember exactly how many millions of tourists from the U.S. are traveling abroad, but the top markets are Paris, Rome, London, Dublin, and so all these different markets experience such a massive influx of American tourists that it's really important for us to protect our business with the American tourists when they go abroad. Not to mention that the GTR is just a fabulous shop window to display your brand to people who might not have been exposed to it yet, and so it's a really exciting, growing segment of our business. And, people are picking up Tito's all over the world now. I was just having a conversation with our importers in India, and Delhi and Mumbai are great duty-free markets for us. So, it's just one example of really cool markets you might not expect Tito's to do so well in, where it's really just grown all over.
Yeah, amazing. How about you, Zach?
For us, I think, look, because we're operating in a bit of a vacuum. Like I said, Ukrainian vodka category is extremely underdeveloped. I'm talking about premium, super premium products, transparency, traceability, authenticity. So as you would expect a global brand, international brand to be. So they're all exciting. I'll give you one example. Because of such a lack of development of that category, we kind of see it as a category as well to develop. Last year alone, we're able to go to 15 new markets. So we're able to close, which is a very good rate of growth. But the ones that I think are probably the most exciting, I guess, are the ones that are setting the trends because we see how they behave. So they're all more spoiled. They're all more cynical in a good way. I don't mean it in a negative way, which is good because you get drilled and grilled, and they want to know everything. So UK for sure, London that is, of course, because these are two different markets, London and the UK. And then Athens, Greece. I think this is fast becoming a very interesting image, not the biggest volume, but a very interesting image setter to the rest of Europe. So we're quite excited on our plans for us is to get into Mykonos this year, because again, this is another little, micro bubble that speaks to the rest of the world, somehow trickles down incredibly. So I guess UK and Greece for us are in Europe are super exciting. Asia is like this. Everybody's super excited about Asia. Asia is huge, great opportunity in the future. Super slow, super slow. Practically, I can vouch for this across all categories. Europe super fast, but saturated and super developed. So you have to find your niche. Dubai is a super exciting market dominated by two key importers. So it's very fragmented and hard to get into. But developing very fast. So certain limitations are to be removed, which I'm sure they are in Asia, in UAE. When more brands can penetrate, there's going to be a lot more exciting in those regions too.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point to make, is that the opportunity is there. The opportunity is there. And even though vodka has reached such a height of success, there is still so much further it can go. In terms of trends, is there anything that you're noticing at the moment in terms of vodka trends that you find exciting, or that you think are going to be key drivers for the category in the coming year or two?
I talked about it earlier, but the premiumization of the vodka category, building strong brands within it, because in some places it's become fairly commoditized. So I think it's just that much more important to identify your brand, and it's exciting to see that part of vodka is the one that's growing the fastest. Mm-hmm. Which for three guys who are working really hard on their brands, I think that's really important to identify that trend is beneficial for people trying to build an actual brand, not just sell vodka at the lowest possible price,
Absolutely.
I think I agree with the premiumization. But again, I think coming back to my point previous, I think kind of flavored vodka, I think there's a massive market, especially if done properly. We really think that there's not that many kind of strong players there. So we're hoping that, we can, grab that market where it's available.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sound like a radical, but I think to us is like, if you look at the next 5-10 years, I think there's going to be a lot of cleansing of the whole industry, not just vodka, meaning more honest products, more high quality products, because consumers know everything today. Everything, 5 minutes on the phone, and if they don't know, they're going to call their blogger friend or whatever, and they'll know everything. So it's like a make it or break it situation. So I think there's going to be a lot of cleansing. So I think the industry I like the word sober up in many ways. And I think...
I don't like that.
You don't like the word?
No.
Oh, well, not from the consumer perspective, but I think the industry will sober up in the sense that, I think a lot of noise will dissipate. Because, as they all say, I don't know, I haven't talked to every consumer in the world myself, but as they say, consumption is decreasing, but the quality is increasing. So if that is true, and it seems to hold true, if that is true, then there's going to be less noise in the industry, higher entry barrier. So it's not going to be like, okay, do you want a vodka brand? Okay, let's bottle it, just anything, stick anything on the label, fake a story, and off you go. I think all of that is going to go, which is the child of the 90s. So I think the opportunity for the category and the trend in the category is driven both by the consumers as well as long-term, as well as the trade as they catch on to it, is this big cleansing. This is the way we see it, get a little bit like black and white.
Yeah.
Also, one trend that I think people are going to be really careful of is celebrity-backed brands. I think we've seen some examples that can be a really toxic relationship between a celebrity and a brand. It can certainly kill a brand. Luckily at Tito's, we don't have a celebrity endorsement. We always say our consumers are celebrities, bartenders. Tito, our founder, is our celebrity. But I think people are going to be really cautious about the celebrity-backed brands if they're ever launching. Not to mention, looking at some research, the celebrity-backed brands doesn't necessarily get you to success. I mean, the numbers I saw were that celebrity-backed brands don't have that much greater of a chance of success than any other brands. So I think that goes back to the quality of the brand and the quality of production, the quality of the product. So I think that trend, there's always going to be celebrities that are launching products. But I think people are going to kind of maybe recalibrate how they see that particular part of the spirits business.
Interesting point. What do you think, for partnerships that haven't worked out positively, what do you think has gone wrong?
I'll say what was going. I think it's like is a model misconception. So there's been suddenly a spike some time ago. I think it's dissipating now. So that's the trend that's going away. I think probably because of so many unsuccessful stories. Is that the way a lot of the brands, unfortunately, sometimes even very big brands, despite their hundreds of advisors and so on, they're following this trend that has probably come from the IT industry, zero to hero. And then they read maybe 5 or 6 incredible success stories of celebrity endorsements or collaborations or acquisitions, but they actually never study the thousands of stories that's gone wrong. And so a lot of the time, it's the mismatch of the brand and the celebrity culture that doesn't work. And consumers, again, they're so savvy today. It's not the 90s anymore, not even early 2000s. So they catch on to it and actually it pushes them away. Because again, going back to authenticity, transparency, the first question is why? And if they can't find that why, then I think this is the first mistake. And then many other things trickle down, I'm guessing. Probably something like that.
Thank you, guys. Some really, really interesting points and thoughts there. We have a little time for some questions from the floor, if anybody has anything they would like to ask our speakers.
This question's for you, Matt, for Tito's. So obviously I'm British and Tito's doesn't circulate Britain as much as the US, but I still knew of the brand. And I'd say that came predominantly from film and TV. I think in American film and TV, it very organically comes up in the scripts and sometimes in placement. Was that something that came organically from the brand? Is that something that came from the media? And could you attribute any success of Tito's directly back to that presence?
Sure. Early on in my career, I actually lived in Los Angeles, and I quite often got requests for Tito's at a studio here or there because some producer or director or actor, that's what they drank. And so it was completely organic. We never paid for product placement or anything like that. So it was always purely incidental. And like, for instance, I don't know how many times I've been around the world in the last 2 or 3 years and someone has asked me about Yellowstone. But I mean, Tito seems to be almost in every episode of Yellowstone. And I think it's been hugely beneficial. Just hearing the name, seeing someone order a double Tito's on the rocks, like in Yellowstone. I mean, it does great things for expanding the brand awareness all over the globe because, one of America's greatest exports is the TV and film industry. And so I think being able to see a brand like Tito's all over the world in a show that's very distinctly kind of Western American, like Yellowstone, has been really positive for us. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, great question. Well, we will be around for a little bit more. So if you do want to come and say hello or chat to us about anything, I'm sure our speakers will be happy to meet with you. But thank you for attending and thank you so much for your time and your insights.